Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where a wild Karen really overstays her welcome and gets a reality check. Am I the jerk for kicking my sister out of my house over a garden? My sister has lived with me since she was a teen mom. She has her own little space for her and her kids. It's my house, I own it. My fiancée, Amy, moved in, and as my wife, Amy can remodel the home as she likes. Amy and I have been together for 4 years. My sister has lived with me for 6. My sister and Amy got into a huge argument over ripping out the grass where her kids play and making a garden that will bloom next spring. Amy has discussed this with me, and it was agreed upon. Due to our different schedules, we forgot to tell my sister about the garden. Amy took a few days off work to meet with the contractors for the initial digging. This happened while I was at work. My sister made a scene with the contractors and yelled at Amy. Amy told my sister that it's time for her to move out and get on with her own life, saying I've been supporting her and her kids for too long. A neighbor got involved and called the police, claiming Amy wasn't authorized to have the contractors dig up the yard. Amy was asked to leave the property by the police with an overnight bag. This was supervised by the police because I was not reachable at work. My sister told me, "Can you believe this jerk ripping up the yard like that?" I had to leave work and take my hour-long commute home to deal with my sister. I told her it's time for her to move out and that she should have never been involved with the garden. It wasn't her place. It's not her home. My sister complained that her boys love to play in that patch of grass, and she couldn't believe I'd make changes to their play area without consulting her. Amy is really upset at my sister and the neighbor. The neighbor tried to apologize, but I had to tell her there's no more coming over because she'll be trespassed. She had no business calling the police and making the situation worse. The neighbor explained she didn't know Amy was authorized to make those changes, and I told her, "That's too bad. You're banned from the property," even though she's friends with my sister and their kids play together. I told my sister that she and the boys have to go, and she needs to be out by the new year or I'll take legal action. My sister keeps crying and apologizing, but her actions showed Amy what her married life would be like if my sister lives with us, and I'm putting my wife first. My sister has to go. Edit. Amy and I talked to a lawyer, and we're getting the legal paperwork together for my sister's eviction. The lawyer also suggested installing cameras in the yard, and those will be put up next week. I'm sending my sister legal notice of the cameras being installed to cover myself, per my lawyer's request. I don't blame the police for their reaction, and neither does Amy. Our destination wedding is coming up in a few weeks. My sister wasn't going due to her relationship with our parents. The cameras will be installed by then, and my sister will receive legal notice not to tamper with them or make any cosmetic changes to the property while we're out of town. Edit. My sister has never paid rent or utilities or contributed to the upkeep of the home. We have a maid who comes every other week to do basic cleaning since the house gets dirty with the kids. My sister does have a job, and both Amy and I watch the boys several nights a week. Not the jerk. You took your sister in because she was a teen mom and you supported her financially, as I understand it, for at least 6 years. You talk about kids, plural, among other things. Did she get pregnant after moving in with you? I also have to wonder, what about the father, your parents? Regardless of the answers, your sister has behaved very badly. She's a guest in your house. She's being supported, and she even has the nerve to meddle in your future wife's renovations, the one you've been with for 4 years now. Entitled doesn't go far enough in this case. Not to mention the neighbor, nosy and inappropriate. You did well across the board. I only feel bad for the kids, who will suffer the most from the tantrums of these two. Send your sister a notice to quit with her expected move-out date listed. Look up how to legally evict someone, because if you want her out by New Year, starting the process now is essential. Basically, if she doesn't move out by the New Year, the notice to quit will have already been served, saving you months of living with her while you evict her. Not the jerk. She's been given plenty of time to vacate. She's not a teen anymore. Am I the jerk for refusing to cook a vegetarian Thanksgiving dinner? I, 31 female, and my brother Mark, who's 35, do not get along. When he was a teen, he saw a documentary on factory farming and decided to become a vegetarian. He quickly became very annoying about it, but my dad shut him down when he tried to get the rest of us to be vegetarian too. Then he went to college, made a bunch of strange friends, and went militantly vegan. It's his entire personality. I stopped talking to him after he threw a fit about one of my birthday dinners being at a steakhouse and spammed my messages and social media with pictures of cows. My parents have been trying to repair the situation, and for a while it seemed like Mark was getting better, so I've gradually let him back into contact. Then he started dating Pam, who is some kind of vegan influencer. She's apparently moderately popular online, but I have no idea what she does exactly. I don't know if Mark was trying to impress her or what, but last Thanksgiving, he insisted that my mom cook at least one vegetarian meal or they wouldn't come on ethical grounds. My mom just wanted everyone to get along on her favorite holiday, so she agreed. It was not a fun meal. This year, my parents have downsized for retirement, and my mom is having health problems. I bought their house when they moved, so my mom asked me to host Thanksgiving to keep things like usual. I told everyone in the group chat so Mark and Pam could make travel arrangements. Pam immediately started gushing about all the vegan replacement recipes she could give me to replace the traditional ones. I told her to send me a main dish recipe they like, and I would give it a shot, but I'm making the traditional meal otherwise, and there should still be plenty of things they can eat. Mark and Pam have been arguing with me about this for days. Then Mark said that if I wouldn't make a meat-free meal, they wouldn't come. This upset my mom, who asked me to just make what she made last year to keep the peace. But I told her that Mark needs to get over himself and I'm not coddling him. I'm having turkey on Thanksgiving. My dad privately agrees with me, but Mark threatening not to come is upsetting my mom so much that he's worried it will impact her health. There's a chance that these might be some of the last family holidays we have with her. My mom thinks I'm putting turkey over my family, and I'm not so sure anymore. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You're not putting turkey over family. Mark is putting no turkey over family. You've reasonably accommodated enough with a vegan option. Mark doesn't get to hold holidays hostage because of his own dietary choices. That's ridiculous. If Mark wants to throw a fit, that's him. I feel very sorry for your mom. She's the one suffering the most here, but she needs to realize that Mark is the one causing this family divide, and it's not fair to everyone else to cater to his demands. My aunt was vegan. She brought her own meals to family gatherings. Why can't they do the same? Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for telling my dad to stop blaming mom for me not calling my stepmom mom anymore? My parents divorced when I, 17 male, was a baby, and my dad remarried when I was 5. When I was 7, I started to call my stepmom mom a little bit, and that felt natural to me. They didn't ask me to do it. After I had said it several times, my dad gave my mom a heads up about it. I heard him tell my stepmom about it when we got home. I was in the office doing homework at the time. Dad and my stepmom started trash-talking my mom. Dad said my mom looked so hurt and offended. Then he and my stepmom said how crappy it was that she couldn't be happy for me, and Dad called my mom a big baby. My stepmom said she hoped my mom didn't stop me from calling her mom, too. She also said it was sad that my mom was so selfish and put herself before me. All of this just because my mom looked hurt. Not even because she said something, just because she looked hurt. I never called my stepmom mom again. I didn't want to hurt my mom, and I didn't feel like my dad and stepmom deserved for me to keep calling my stepmom mom when they were trash-talking my mom so much. It was noticed. Dad would call my stepmom mom in conversation sometimes as a test. He'd say things like, "Go ask your mom," or "Did you find your mom?" And I would always say, "I asked Marie," or "I found Marie." I also told people I only had one mom and one dad, and that I had a stepmom when asked, or if it came up. I'd do this enough if my dad or stepmom could hear, and it bothered them so much. Then one of my half-siblings started calling my mom, Mom, and my dad and stepmom quickly, and actually pretty harshly, shut that down. When it happened randomly over the course of a couple of years, it resulted in a bit of a freakout. I found it funny, given that my mom couldn't even look hurt without being called all kinds of terrible things in their opinion. Now that I'm in my senior year of high school and almost 18, my dad has been more bothered by the fact that I just, to them, randomly stopped calling my stepmom Mom. He brought it up to me with my stepmom in the room a few days ago. He told me I shouldn't let my mom influence my decision on who gets called Mom and Dad. He said it seemed so sad that my stepmom was Mom for a while, and then I just used her name again. He also told me that if my mom really loved me, she'd be happy for me. I told him it wasn't my mom, that I heard everything the two of them said, and that it made me reevaluate whether my stepmom deserved to be called Mom anymore. I decided, nah, because they disrespected my mom. Then I said, "Go look in a mirror and stop blaming my mom when she never even said anything to you, and you both trash-talked her for how she looked." Dad accused me of lying and said even if it is true, I was being crappy for holding that against them so much and blaming him as harshly when they just wanted me to be able to love everyone. He said I was too willing to assign all the blame to him and my stepmom. Am I the jerk? Honestly, I think you did the right thing. It's not cool for your dad and stepmom to trash talk your mom and then expect you to act like everything's fine. You were just being honest about how their words affected you. It sounds like your dad needs to take a step back and think about how his actions impact you. You're not being unreasonable for wanting to show respect to your mom. I had the opportunity for revenge, but I couldn't do it. Plus 11-month update. I found out a month ago that the love of my life and my best friend have been having an affair for at least the past year. After looking into it more, not only did all of our friends know, but they also have been actively hanging out with them. I'm a socially awkward individual, so making friends is hard for me. I met all of them through my best friend, so I guess it's natural they chose him over me. I hated all of them. I spent 24/7 with one of them when their parent passed because they didn't want to be alone. I was there for another when her boss was harassing her and she needed help finding a new job. I let another one stay at my place for free for 3 months because his parents kicked him out. All 6 of these jerks have been through so much, and I was there for every one of them. Now I realize they all just kept me around to use me when needed, including my girlfriend and best friend. I helped the man start his business when no one would invest in him. Still hasn't really taken off, and he still asks for my time to help him do things. I've been working day and night to help her pay for the medical bills from her surgery after she had an accident. I've been out of the house for a few months because my mother was sick and I needed to help her, but I still commute back 10 hours every weekend to make sure my girlfriend is doing all right. I've gone through her phone and I've seen all of the pictures, the flirty messages, and the group chats, all of them planning outings, meeting, and whatnot. I've seen the disparaging messages about me, the I love yous, and then basically flip-flopping between still loving me, leaving me, not wanting to hurt me anymore, and then realizing they need me. They all still need me. I was upset, and I was so angry that I got scared. The thing about being the go-to guy for help and being the quiet one is that people trust you. They tell you things that can get you in a lot of trouble. I spent the past month preparing my plan, getting everything in order to absolutely implode their lives in a way you can never recover without someone altruistically helping you out. But who will help them? Not me, and they can't ask each other because they will all be in the same boat. Everything was ready. I had pictures, videos, and text logs. The lease would have been up in December, and I wasn't renewing it. I have a new job lined up, which would pay less, but I know I'll enjoy it. All my main items were out, and the rest I didn't care for. I pretended to go out to my mom's. I waited an hour and came back. I could see them through the windows, him and her cuddling and kissing while they all sat around chatting like it's a regular day. I took a picture of that scene. I was ready to send the texts and emails, basically ready to set their lives ablaze. But I couldn't. No matter how much someone has hurt me, I can't be responsible for ruining their life. Sure, they did the things, but I was just unearthing them. It would still have been my decision that burned them all, and there would have been collateral damage to people who did nothing. I had come this far and had to do something, so I just sent the picture in a group chat and looked in. One by one, they checked the message and started panicking, I guess. One of them finally spots my car, and I see them all look at me. I don't know what was going on in their heads. Was it panic, regret, guilt, sadness? Who knows? I started my car, and as I started driving off, my ex came out barefoot in the cold, moving as fast as she could in her state. I don't know if she was crying because of guilt or regret, but I didn't care. I drove off to see my mom. They called me a bunch of times and sent me thousands of messages. I used to read all of them, and with each one, I felt less for them. It went from asking for forgiveness to anger to groveling, basically to questions about how they will do the things I used to do for all of them. I don't care. I'm getting a new number on Monday. I still get a new sobbing voicemail from my ex every 20 to 30 minutes asking for me to come back. I get texts from my ex-best friend telling me to come back and beat him up, that he would sell everything he owns and give it to me. My friends apologized for their part and wanting to be pals again. I don't know what drives this, but they know I've read some of them. I think I'm over it. I don't feel angry anymore, and I feel happy I didn't do what they did to me. It would have never been satisfying for me. Update. First of all, my mom is doing much better and is preparing for a 5K. Her goal is to complete one by 2025. I'm doing amazing. My new job has been one of the most fulfilling experiences of my life. Since I stopped paying for unnecessary medical bills and rent for a place I never really cared for, I've saved up so much money. I decided to finally invest that money in something worthwhile, myself. I didn't hit the gym or anything, but I did get some work done on my teeth. I started buying nicer clothes and outfits. I started anti-anxiety meds, which have brought me out of my shell. I feel so much better. I met someone a few weeks ago. We've been talking through text, and it seems to be going well. I don't really know what's going on with the people I left behind. I heard rumors that came from a long chain of people, so don't trust them really. My ex and ex-best friend are having a baby, which has caused financial issues for them with the medical debt and struggling business venture, but are somehow making it work. The girl whom I helped get a job was caught in an affair with her boss. He may or may not have been married, who threw her under the bus professionally to save himself, but seems to have landed on her feet because the company wanted to avoid a scandal. Another one of them has gotten engaged to his girlfriend. Last I remember, he was single, so I don't even know how long they've been dating. So a mixed bag of good for me and a little bad for them, but not terrible. Just normal life issues. The last contact I had with my ex was an email 6 months ago. She detailed how sorry she was about the fallout of her actions. She just fell in love with him while still loving me and didn't really know how to proceed from there. It was a bad time for her as she relied on me so much that made her get resentful, and something about being with him made her feel in control. She ended it with how much she regrets her actions and the hurt she caused, but doesn't regret loving me or him, and that she still loves us both and will always be here if I need her. I never responded because there was no need. I can understand her perspective in this. Doesn't mean I condone her actions, but I can somewhat forgive her and move on from this permanently. Humans are complex, and so is love. Sometimes we hurt the ones we love the most. While I don't like her or her actions, I do believe she loved us both. She doesn't seem to have any reason to lie. Dude was denied a $45 refund. They paid $23 million a couple years later. This happened to a close friend of mine. It begins with his impulsive decision to try out the paid features of a dating app for 1 week, sometime in mid-2018, for the usual reasons. He says he clicked through the paywall, was prompted for a credit card number, which he provided, agreeing to pay $6.99. He saw nothing to indicate that it would be a recurring charge. Of course, this was naive, but being a guy who had just started to have enough money to afford things like that, he didn't have much experience dealing with tech companies. He says he wasn't much more impressed with the paid features than the free ones, and eventually stopped opening the app. He deleted it from his phone a couple of weeks later and pretty much forgot about it. Fast forward 3 months, and he sees a charge for $6.99 paid to Social Media Inc., or some similarly nondescriptive name. He investigates and realizes that he's been charged every week for a few months. He ends up calling his bank, which provided enough information for him to connect the dots. After unsuccessfully searching for a way to contact customer service, he re-downloaded the app and found no clear way to unsubscribe. He followed the help links, which provided instructions that didn't work. Eventually, he found an email address and sent a concise description of his problem. He received a flippant response that simply repeated the instructions from the help pages. This kicked off a series of emails over the better part of a week. He provided more and more details about the screens he saw as he tried to follow their instructions, but received increasingly dismissive and even contemptuous responses. Eventually, he got a set of modified instructions that included updating the app. It became clear to him that there had been a bug, but there was no apology. At that point, the time it cost him added injury to insult. He requested a $45 refund for the weeks he hadn't even had the app installed, but got a sneering denial in response. Figuring others had likely been treated the same way, he Googled class action lawsuit against the well-known dating app and found out that he was right. A law firm located just 1 area code away had filed a complaint on behalf of a class of people with similar complaints. He called, left a message, and got a return call an hour later from an attorney who was eager to hear his story. He was asked to gather some bank statements, Play Store account records, and write a couple of paragraphs describing his experience, which he provided in a neatly compiled PDF package. A week later, there was a second interview with that attorney and one of his colleagues. It ended with them inviting him to be their lead plaintiff in their class action lawsuit. Fast forward 2.5 years later. My friend invested maybe 20 or 30 hours in total, mostly in phone calls and 1 in-person meeting with the same 2 attorneys, which turned out to be the entire firm. He then received a phone call notifying him that the legal team for the giant tech firm had crumbled as the court date approached and agreed to pay a settlement of $23 million. My friend received a modest 4-digit incentive for being the lead plaintiff. The lawyers, I assume, did much better for their 2.5 years of hard work in what was a risky David and Goliath situation for them. The attorneys gleefully invited him to get in touch if he ever perceived any future injustices, which he has, but unfortunately, tech companies have since become much more focused on arbitration clauses, so it's probably a one-time win for him. Entitled roommates were mad I didn't cook for them, so they threw my stuff in the trash. Back in college, I had to deal with 3 bad roommates for 6 months. It was community college, so no dorm, just a rundown apartment that looked like it was straight out of the 80s. I was balancing school and part-time work, so I didn't have a lot of money. Funny thing is, I was literally the only one there who knew anything about cooking, much less did dishes. I wasn't one of those hardcore couponers, and there were mainly only two good stores within walking and biking distance. One was a typical supermarket, the other a small discount food store. That's where I went the most. I was also no stranger to the local thrift store. My roommates mostly ate junk food or whatever else they could grab that was already made, so for obvious reasons, I couldn't keep leftovers. We also had fights about them not doing their share of cleaning, but that was resolved later. Two of these guys said they were friends before college, and the third roommate fit right in with them for a while. The drama over food first started when I made myself an egg sandwich for breakfast. 2 eggs over easy with your choice of cheese, bread, and mayo. It's usually pretty good and a solid breakfast. One of my roommates saw me eating it and asked for one too. I apologetically said no because I was on a tight food budget and the frying pan was already in the sink. He rolled his eyes and groaned. I told him they were easy to make if he bought the ingredients, but he balked at the notion. Another day, I made mashed soft-boiled eggs for breakfast. That attracted more attention. It's eggs boiled just enough that the whites are cooked, but the yolk is still liquid. You peel the shell off and mash the eggs in a bowl with a fork. It can be easy to mess up, and I only succeed half the time, but it's great with just basic seasoning and sometimes hot sauce. I like to eat it on toast and sometimes over rice. I also made egg salad from time to time. Eggs were cheap, and a carton was basically $1 at the discount store. I'm also not a big fan of cereal since I had to eat it a lot growing up, and I prefer a warm breakfast without a lot of sugar. No matter how much I told my roommates they could cook their own food if they let me show them how, they just kept complaining that I made food they weren't allowed to eat. Even though they wanted to eat good food at home, they were completely unwilling to put in any effort. Compared to them, I was the only broke person there. They all had the latest gaming consoles and new laptops. One of them even had a car. I had an old N64 and CRT TV that were pity gifts from friends years prior, a GameCube I'd splurged on, and a used laptop I got secondhand. My friends were near constantly gaming, watching YouTube, and being general couch potatoes when not in class. I think they thought I'd be a pushover at first, but I'm the kind of guy that seems chill until you push me one step too far, and they did this by stealing my game systems and my food. Here's what happened. One evening, I made something good for dinner. I don't remember specifically what it was, but it might have been tilapia fillets. I ate those a lot, even made them into spicy fish burgers. My roommates all ganged up on me over how their dinners always sucked unless they went out to eat. Microwave food all around for them most nights. They wanted me to finally make something nice for everybody. I told them if they each kicked in $5, I'd make us all a nice spaghetti dinner the next day. They agreed. My biggest mistake was not collecting the money from them in advance. I went out and got some ground beef, a jar of sauce, a loaf of garlic bread, the noodles, and canned green beans for a side. I whipped up a great dinner, but when I asked for the money from each of them, they laughed and refused. They played it off as a joke. When I didn't accept that answer, they told me they were sick of me flaunting my cooking around them and never sharing it. I got upset and told them I'd never cook for them again, and I stuck to it. They tried several more times and I always refused. They even offered to pay me again, but still refused to pay me for the first time. So I'm sure they would have just pulled the same stunt again. Money or no money, I had my pride, and I meant it when I said I'd never cook for them again. They started acting like kids whose parents wouldn't feed them and were pretty angry when I called them out on it. I wasn't obligated to be their caretaker. I didn't know what kind of homes these guys came from, but they certainly weren't used to not getting their way. One day I came home from work and found all my food missing from the fridge and cupboards, and none of my roommates were home. I was furious and couldn't even confront them, so I just tried to play video games to unwind, but my consoles were missing. I lost my mind. I went to see a neighbor down the hall who had sold me the GameCube and asked for advice. He had an evil idea and said he'd use his digital camera to record my roommates when I confronted them, if I wanted, but only if I paid him $20. I didn't really have a choice, so I agreed. When my roommates finally came back, they were all smug until they realized their gaming consoles and laptops were missing. They flipped out, threatening to beat me up. But I held my ground and told them I wanted my stuff back or I'd never tell them where their stuff was. Turns out, they had bagged up all my food and thrown it in the dumpster a few hours earlier. Then they hid my game systems and TV somewhere in the building before taking off to a party. I asked why they did that, and they claimed it was because they had been drinking all day since it was a weekend. Then they tried to say it was just a stupid drunken joke while also telling me I'd gone too far. I laughed and said they were enormous hypocrites and jerks for saying I went too far after what they did. I just got even. One of them looked ready to fight me, and I drew their attention to the nearby window. That's where they saw our neighbor outside recording everything with his digital camera. He gave me an okay and took off down the fire escape before my roommates could do anything. I told them that guy just recorded their entire admission. That was bullying and theft. I told them I'd take that recording to the dean if they didn't make things right because they wouldn't like having that stuff on their records. It was well known that a couple of girls had been kicked out from the college for bullying their roommate the previous year. They all looked like the color had been drained from their faces. I told them I wanted my stuff back now and reimbursement for the food they threw out. It was their move. They all took off outside as fast as they could. They came back with my game systems and games in a garbage bag and even retrieved my food from the dumpster, expecting me to just take it back. But I refused to touch the food because it had been in the garbage for hours and I would only accept cash. Additionally, they had dropped my TV and it was broken, so I wanted that replaced too. They all hemmed and hawed, but finally asked what I wanted. I said I wanted a new TV and $60 cash from each of them. They asked why that specific number. I said 50 each to replace the food they tossed, 5 each for the spaghetti dinner, and what remained for having to pay a guy to wait 2 hours outside in the cold to record them. They all got their wallets out and begrudgingly gave me the money. They had all previously bragged about how their parents and scholarships were paying their bills, so they easily had the cash. After getting paid, I told them where to find their stuff and they stopped bothering me. One of them had a small flat-screen TV in his stuff and gave it to me to replace what they broke, and then we called it even. But after that, they avoided speaking to me. Eventually, they all started getting on each other's nerves since I'd ruined their fun. They also never brought alcohol into the apartment again for fear that I'd snitch. They did try to harass the guy I had paid to record them. He said he'd take the recording to the dean himself if they bothered him again, so there was nothing they could do about the situation. When the lease renewal came, 2 of the roommates opted to move out of the building because they and the third guy now hated each other. Yeah, they all hated me, but the 2 that left were especially the worst. They liked each other just fine. I didn't bother keeping tabs on them once they were out, and in the few classes we had together, they kept away from me. The one roommate who stayed actually made some improvements as a person. He made sure to tell the new guys who moved in not to mess with me at all. One of them was pretty cool though. He liked cooking simple home meals like I did, and he also liked Nintendo and bikes. He became my best friend and still is to this day. We even still play Mario Kart together when we can, and we took up cycling again once I separated from my ex-wife. He's been my greatest support, more so than any family I've ever had. Also, for those wondering where I hid my roommate's stuff, I put it all in their own suitcases, which were already stored in the closet. That would have been one of the last places they'd ever look. They were all so upset when they realized it had been right there the whole time. First time I dressed up for a double date, and my friend didn't like it. My friend Joel, who's 20, asked me, 21 male, to join him for a double date with Jean, who's 20, and her friend Sam, who's 19. Joel got a date with Jean, but she wanted to make it a double date as she wanted to introduce Sam to the dating scene in a more friendly kind of way. I agreed to it, but Sam wasn't amused by the idea of me being her date, but agreed because she was happy with just the experience. Why? Well, me and Joel are 2 totally different types of guys. He's the charming and athletic guy, while I'm the chubby and more reserved one. Doesn't help that I'm balding this early in life. The times I have met her at university has been while I'm wearing the same clothes. I have a set of clothes only for university, sort of like a self-imposed uniform. Every day is different, but I repeat weekly. So yesterday I got my hair cut as low as possible without going into shaving, fixed my beard, and I have to say I was looking mighty fine. Got out my brand new clothes. Now today we had our double date after 2 p.m. I arrived late, but only by 5 minutes. Joel was texting me like crazy until I arrived holding a rose for Sam. I'm a bit corny, but I thought it would be a nice gesture. Joel wasn't happy for some reason. Jean looked surprised, but Sam, she smiled widely and her eyes sparkled a bit. We start our date and Sam and I are having a bit of a blast. We decided to go out bowling before we go for ice cream in recommendation from Sam. We got along, but not really enough to say that I like her more than a friend. Maybe a second date, solo this time, would be nice. As we're hanging out, I could feel glances from Joel and small smiles from Jean. I know Jean is smiling because Sam is having fun, but I didn't know why Joel was so angry with me. After the date, Joel unloaded on me, how I was cringe for bringing Sam a rose, that I was there to entertain Sam, not distract Jean from him, that I dressed too formal and too fancy, I was only wearing a white shirt, flannel overshirt, and jeans with my Converse. He also said I should have stayed at home if I was going to act like I did at the date. I just talked with Sam, shared a meal with her, and went to get her favorite ice cream from her favorite store. He was there, and Gene was 100% on board with the ideas. I barely talked with Gene. He had all the playing field for himself. Not my fault Gene was more interested in seeing her friend happy. Sounds like he was annoyed that you showed him up on the date. He's probably used to attention and thought being next to you would make him look better. Sorry, just going based off your description. Girls care way more about thoughts and effort than just attractive. That's why you are getting the attention of both of them. OP. I knew from the start he was planning to use me to look better, but I wasn't expecting him to be rude about his date with Jane and blaming it on me. Maybe the only reason Jean agreed to date your friend was so she'd have an excuse to get Sam out on a date with somebody, and Joel is salty about it. Don't worry about it. It sounds like you and Sam had a nice time, and Jean is happy that Sam enjoyed herself. Joel is being insecure. You absolutely should ask Sam to go out solo, even if you decide she's not for you romantically. It sounds like you guys get along well and could be great friends. OP. I think I will ask her out. She mentioned she was more into retro gaming, and we have an old school arcade close to campus. Update. Let's start with my friend Joel. I explained to him what had happened and how it made me feel, and he apologized. A bit of a forced apology, but it's been 2 weeks, and he's actually changed a bit. I explained that he should be more attentive with his dates and took it to heart. He is still the same guy, but now he at least tries to actually connect with his date. Jean, well, not much. We started hanging out, but I don't know how much happened with her and Joel. Just that it didn't work out. I will take that. Now Sam, well, I asked her out for another date, this time a solo date, and she said yes with a big grin on her face. We went to the arcade and we had a blast, maybe too much. That night I returned to my apartment at 3 a.m. and exhausted. That was a night filled with firsts. With that said, we hit it off. I thought we wouldn't click, but after a few drinks and karaoke, we really made her loosen up a bit, and we talked for another 3 hours on our second date, had 2 more dates, and now we are officially dating. I showed her my last post, and she was amused by all of your replies. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.